We'll begin this conversation first taking a quote from Zena Shrek, who once said, "Electricity, for example, was considered a very satanic thing when it was first discovered and utilized." But what do we see it as today? And I'm bringing it back here to Nigeria, and let's see how we can take look at the rot in the electricity sector and then see some preferred solution from industry analysts. Very warm greetings and welcome to the conversation, reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. I'm Annabelle Oji. And like I stated earlier, we're looking at the Nigeria's electricity sector, the challenge, the rot in the system, and what can be done to ameliorate the situation. My guest on the show today is Olabode Fadipe, who was the former General Manager of Corporate Communications at Abuja Electricity Distribution Company. He is an energy expert, and he is in the best position to give us all the answers to the questions we'll be asking with regards to Nigeria's electricity sector today. Very welcome to the show again.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers.
Good morning. I'm not sure I've seen you this year. How have you been? How's Nigeria been treating you?
Well,
you had to like you with that style of relief, yeah?
Yes. So, well, thank God. There is a restoration of hope. They call it renewed hope. If we can go that route. But
Is your hope renewed?
Well, I think one of the things that keeps a man living is that he has hope. Otherwise, that's why some people go the extreme of committing suicide because they can't see hope. I think there is hope, and I'm speaking very seriously. We can't have the amount of resources we have in this country, human, natural, every kind of thing, and not see hope. It may look disastrous today, and it's understandably so, but I think there is hope. We cannot continue like this. That's much I can tell you.
Most definitely. All right, let's go to Nigeria's electricity sector and then talk about, we'll start from the challenges. The last conversation I had with an energy expert where he talked about the rot in the system. He talked about from all we had from the privatization sector where it started and all of that. And then according to him, he stated that he is surprised at the fact that the current minister of power is sitting on top of both him, his permanent secretary, his directors, his MDs of various institutions with regards to the power sector. They are sitting on top of 3,000 megawatts and they are not even moving. They're not bothered, according to him. That's what he stated. And even the president sitting on a paltry 3,000 megawatts, and yet they are not moved, because if you calculate the fact that over 200 million Nigerians managing 3,000 megawatts, that's supposed to be where their solution should start, or where they should be shouting from. Why have we been here, and why are we still here? Do you see that as a challenge at all, Olabode?
The fact that the minister is not showing enough concern, or that his ministry or his directors, ministry made up of his directors, PAMSEC, the fact that they are not showing enough concern is a major challenge on its own. But how do we want to determine whether they are showing enough concern or not? Is it by comments they make in the media, or is it by the actions that they take? Unfortunately, we have seen more of the former than the latter. We've had the minister talking so much in the public space. We've had him, I think there was a time almost every week the minister will have something to say. This morning I just read the minister being quoted to have said that we have shifted the goalpost from 6,000 in 6 months, or 6,500 megawatts in 6 months, to 6,000 megawatts by the end of the year. So, in other words, there is inconsistency. Yesterday you said this, today you have shifted. If you shifted today, what is the guarantee that by the time we get to the end of the year, you will not shift again? So we've seen more of the former, which is speaking in the public space, than the latter. And in any case, the moment the minister was employed, because he's also an employee of the federal government, but by way of appointment now, the first thing he did was to go to a radio station in Ibadan, or your state, and he began to speak to the media. So we're wondering whether that's the primary thing to do. It was very much later that the minister went to the NCC, National Control Center in Oshogbo, and then he convened a meeting of the agencies and the discos and things like that. So for me, it's worrisome that it is more of talking that we hear, and they say talk is cheap. We want a minister that can do what he has said he will do, but we are not seeing that. This administration, strangely, is 1 year old. This
1
month.
year old, or maybe we'll soon be 1 year old. Let me give an excuse, like some people say.
No, June, July, August, because it was sworn in May 29, so you can discount the 2 or 3 other days. Okay, let's start from June, July, August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April.
Yes,
so 11 months.
We're still in April.
We're still in April, I agree. But what you can't do, what you didn't do in 11 months, you won't do in 30 or 40 days.
Don't you believe in power of the 11th hour?
We would have seen the signs.
I
can't see any sign that anything radical
will happen.
The most radical thing that can happen is a change of personnel. Speaking seriously, the most radical thing that can happen between today and the end of next month is change of personnel. I can assure you that even if government has the money, government will not pay the gas suppliers the over $1 billion the market is owing. Government will not do that. I can assure you, I can say it confidently anywhere, that even if government has the money, it will not pay the generating companies the over 1 trillion naira it is owing the generating companies. It won't. Even if it's going to be by what you call ways and means, which means print currency, ask central bank to print currency and you pay them. Government is not even going to do ways and means. Those are the most radical things that can happen, and you can see a fundamental change in the power sector.
This death in the power sector, is it as regards to the over 1 billion, I think it's 1.2, I saw, billion
$1.3 billion
that is being owed? Is that the reason why we're seeing this challenge?
It is a fundamental part of the reason. A fundamental part, and I'll tell you why. Whether as a man or as a woman, if you want to cook in your house, whether you are using firewood, you are using coal stove, you are using any kind of means of fire that you are, cooking equipment that you are using, you need a fuel. So it could be gas, could be kerosene, could be electricity. There's something that will power that equipment. What powers our own generating companies, most of them, particularly during this period of the year, is the gas. And we are owing them $1.3 billion. What government was able to pay was $120 billion. So we didn't even pay the fraction on the $1.3 billion. So we are still owing them. And once we are owing them, they decided not to supply gas again.
Okay.
The moment they stop supplying gas, it means a lot of the generating companies will not be able to generate and feed into the grid.
Right.
Unless they can continue to have a direct relationship with the gas supplying company. Otherwise, if it is going through embed, nothing. They are not paying them. So they say, we cannot continue to supply you on credit. The time that we seem to have stability in the grid, when TCN was able to manage the grid and it stayed for over 400 days, was when we were respecting payment agreement for the gas. The moment we stopped, it accumulated. And then we have this challenge today. So Non-payment of gas companies is a fundamental reason of why we are where we are. And unless we deal with that problem, we're not likely to live where we are.
Oh, wow. That's really sad. All right. Now, so what then is, I hear during the IMF conference, I hear the MD CEO of Ikeja Disco, that's in person of Folake Shoetan, talking about let me give the eyes. She does give the alleged or the increase in tariff, and then other matters that she talked about, which they are trying to look at, which will help to solve this consistent breakdown of our national grid. Now I'm going to ask you that question. If we decide to keep increasing electricity tariff, whether monthly or quarterly or 3 months, and then before you know it, you're coming back again to increase it, is that even a right, putting our best foot forward? Is that a step in the right direction at all?
Now, the question is a little bit trickish. Whether we can continue to increase tariff and whether that is a solution. The first thing to deal with is, are we having the correct price now? If we don't have the correct price of the commodity, we may not be able to run away from making sure that there is an alignment between the cost price and the selling price.
Okay.
And the selling price is a function of cost of production plus the profit margin. That would be the selling price. Because by reason of Section 30 and Section 116 of the Electricity Act, NEC is allowed to run the market in such a way that the investor can recover or recoup his investment. That's the first leg. The second leg is that he's also allowed to recoup something in addition for his investment, so that there can continue to be the investment can be a going concern.
Right.
The investor, we must understand, is not a Santa Claus. It's not there for charity. Even charity
Father Christmas.
Exactly. So that one we must have very clear at the back of our mind. And the only way you can do that is to make sure that you price the commodity appropriately. There's recovery of cost, and then there is markup for profit. Having said that, it will be dangerous to continue to increase tariff without correspondingly dealing with associated issues. So what do I mean? One of the fundamental reasons for the tariff adjustment or right pricing is to also be able to give room for investment, because without investing in the asset or the sector, there won't be room for expansion.
Okay.
I mean, take for instance, for purpose of this conversation, Abuja Electricity at, say, let's say 2 years ago, had 20 33 kV injection substations. And then transmission has also raised its capacity from, say, 8,500 to 7,000 megawatts that it can take for the purpose of this conversation. Say from 8,500 to, say, 9,000, 10,000 megawatts that it can take. You know, it has added about 1,500 megawatts.
Right.
For it to be able to evacuate that load, if it's not going through the eligible customer route or willing buyer, willing seller, willing seller, willing buyer route, and it's going to go through the discos, the discos will necessarily have to build the next step down, the voltage step down equipment, because TCN cannot come into your homes from Katampe straight away. It will have to build something to step down. The equipment in Katampe cannot come into individual homes. It can go into some industries that can take at that voltage level.
Right.
But for the domestic customers, it cannot go straight into their homes. It's not possible. It is disaster. So Distribution, this is where distribution comes in. They will now take at 33 kV level and bring it down further to 11 kV level, and even bring it down further to 415, to the 415 level, before it will not even come into your house at 220 volts.
Oh.
So where we are now, assuming that AEDC is supplying this studio now, you can't do more than 220 volts because that's our standard in this country. It can go below. As it goes below, you begin to have what you call tomato light, candle light, voltage collapse. I mean, generally called voltage collapse.
Yeah.
But the standard in this country is about 220 volts. But it's coming from 0.415 at the feeder pillar and transformer level.
Okay.
So you see there have been a lot of step down.
Right.
Before that step down can occur, before those various stages of step down can occur, there has to be money to run the lines, to build the civil structure, the building that will house the control room, to bring in the panels, to bring in the power transformers, to do so many other things before they will now run it down to your 11 kV and then to your distribution transformers, 500 kVA, 300 kVA, 200 kVA, 100 kVA, or 50 kVA pole mounted, as the case may be. So this is where tariff is a fundamental driver of so many things in the power sector. When the tariff is not right, it becomes extremely difficult and possibly an impossibility for you to now say that you are getting the quantity and the quality of electricity that you ought to get. And that's why we must applaud NEC for having the courage to speak about, because it is the discourse that initiated the process of tariff review. All that NEC did was to look at the indicators. The forex is an indicator, and then inflation rate and some other macroeconomic indicators before they agreed to approve that tariff.
So are you saying that that tariff hike is acceptable?
Acceptability is different from necessity. Is it necessary?
Okay, so is it necessary?
I think so.
Oh, really?
Take, for instance, we are owing gas people. Government says tariff, subsidy had risen to 2,900%. The projection for this year, before the tariff adjustment for band A, was 2.9 trillion, which is 10% of the national budget of this country. As we speak today, now, that projection has risen to about 3.2 or 3.5 trillion, which is even more than 10% of the national budget. Now, look at what, and that is where the comment of the Honorable Minister of Information makes a lot of sense. What did he say? He said the 1 trillion that will be saved from subsidy will be spent on some other things. So it's not as if the power sector is going to give physical cash to federal government, but that money that federal government ought to use in paying for subsidy, federal government is no longer going to use that money to pay for subsidy, because the market is now raising its own fund for that purpose, and that money can go to some other things.
If you say the market is now raising its own funds, now how would you then justify the fact that band A, I pay over 200 naira to get just one, is it kilowatt you call it, 1 unit? 225
or so.
225, right. Now I pay such amount of money, but then you put me in a band where I'm supposed to enjoy at least 20 to 24 hours of electricity. Okay, let me say, give me 15 hours. That's fine. That is even too much because I don't even stay at home for up to 15 hours.
That's you.
But that's, okay, let me just leave it at, for me, give me 15 hours. But I'm not even getting up to 10 hours. I'm not even getting up to 5 hours. But yet I'm paying 225 naira to get 1 unit. And then you say it's necessary.
Now, you have raised two fundamental issues. One, is it necessary to adjust tariff to reflect the realistic rate. That's the first thing. The second one is whether I am getting value
for my money.
These are two fundamentals. Availability is one, right price is another. So let's deal with the first one.
Okay.
We have used statistics to drive the conversation for the first one. And what are the data that we have used? One, that subsidy had risen to about 10% of the national budget, which is an intolerable level. That's one. Secondly, even the government that would have loved to take that burden does not have the power to take the burden. You cannot carry that burden. That is what I'm not privy to government funds. I don't know what is in government account. I don't know all the sources of government revenue. But government has consistently come out to say, I cannot carry this burden. And extant facts show that government cannot carry it because it has been delinquent in payment for existing payment obligations. One, the gas suppliers are not paid. Two, the GENCOs are not paid. These are clear situations. So if we want the market to survive, then the market has to generate its own revenue. And that's what drove us to the point of adjusting the tariff for a particular class of customers, which I know is another conversation entirely. Should they be the only ones to bear the brunt? Why not spread the burden across the entire customer mix? A, B, C, D, E. And I tag the other ones band F, which I call the bandits. Because there are also bandits. And who are the bandits? Those who steal electricity.
Why do you have to tag them as the band F?
Yes, they are bandits. Yes, band X being the bandits. They vandalize, they bypass, they steal electricity, they do all manner of illegalities. Anyway, that's a different conversation. So we are saying that in the pricing of electricity, the data has shown that it's not properly priced. So that's one side. Now, the side of not getting value for your money, the question is, how do I get value for my money? What NEC has done to address your concern is to say that anyone who is on band A, do your best to take inventory. We are also taking inventory of the feeder. You do your best to say, okay, look, as a customer, if you want to, in law, we say that anyone who asserts must prove.
Must prove, right.
Okay? If you say, I have not given you the number of hours that the contractual relationship allows me to give to you, or the service level commitment that the service level that I have committed myself to, 20 hours and above, upon which you accepted to be my customer, because there is a contractual relationship at that point. There is an offer and there is an acceptance.
Acceptance, yes.
Now, for you to show that there has been a breach of that contract, there must be some kind of evidence. And your cheapest evidence will be to say that on 23rd of April, from 12 midnight, where the day started from, till 3 a.m., there was power supply. By 3 a.m., the feeder tripped. Until 6 a.m., you did not restore. But from 6 a.m. till 12 midnight, you gave me electricity. So how many hours is that? Is that to? So you have only lost 3 hours in that case. So you have gotten electricity for 21 hours. If it continues like that, NEC says you cannot be hard to be complaining.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because that's 20 hours and above.
So it doesn't matter if I get that electricity from maybe in the midnight when I am sleeping. It doesn't matter the timing. What matters is you get 20 hours. That's it.
Let's even leave the issue of timing now, because you'll be coming into you'll be coming into the period you call dead hours.
Right.
Okay. Let's even leave the period of timing. Let's even, because by the time we go into that one now, a lot of complications will come in. Let's even deal with the fact that for 24 hours in a day, we are able to harvest 20 hours. So whether that 20 hours was made up of your sleeping time and part of your wake-up time, let's even leave that. Let's even say 20 hours and above. And you are able to achieve that for 1 week or consistently. Next says, the DISCO has met the service level commitment. But NEC has also said that in the likely event, I'm deliberately using the word likely, in the likely event, and it's deliberate, in the likely event that the DISCO is not able to do, or is able to do only 19 hours and below, or even 19 points, let's say for the purpose of this discussion, 19.99 hours and below. If that happens for 7 days, is it 7 or 5 days? I think 7 days. Next says that feeder will be downgraded from band A to band B, and the DISCO will not be able to charge the customer as band A customers, because the service level agreement, commitment has not been respected. Okay.
So now me as the customer, I am not, if I have that complaint that I've not enjoyed, I've seen just only 19.99, where do I go from here?
First of all, go to the DISCO. Next is good. Next regulation is next. What do they call it now? Complaints resolution mechanism. Your first port of call is the DISCO. When you finish with the DISCO and the matter is not it's not resolved, you can escalate to next level. As a matter of fact, NEC has what you call what do they call it now? I know there's supposed to be one in Gwarimpa. Forgive me, I can't remember precisely the name now. NEC forum, yes. There's what is called NEC forum. And that NEC forum is made up of industry experts who can listen to you, evaluate your evidence, and then make a quasi-legal pronouncement,
and they run an
order.
They run an open door.
Yes, it's open.
Okay.
It's almost like a normal court, but it's not. It doesn't use the language of the court, but what they do is similar, because they make an order that the DISCOs are supposed to respect. Okay. So that's why I call it quasi-legal activities. Now, so that's another complaint resolution platform that is open to the customer. And then you can also escalate to NEC. It's particularly for this 20 hours issue. NEC is very, very sensitive to it. NEC is also monitoring. If you follow the news when the tariff issue was announced, AEDC breached.
Yes, they did.
And NEC sanctioned immediately 200 million.
Yes, they did. But I don't even know if anything has happened since after that sanction, because I remember someone still complained that they bought units she bought 20,000 naira worth of units, but she was given she bought 5,000 worth of units, but she was given 20 units.
So how much was she supposed to get?
She was at
225. I don't think she was actually supposed to get more than that. That's my little arithmetic. Forgive me, I'm not.
It's looking like she got like 250 naira for just one. If you buy 5,000 naira and they give you 20 units,
that's 250 times 2. That's 500. Whatever it is, the point we need to note here is customers must also take up the responsibility of complaining. Let them not shy away. Let them not be timid about it.
It's about timidity here, Fadipe. You know, people just complain about the way, especially when it comes to government matters. We complain about these things. We go to the NEPA office.
Let's not see the power sector as government property. I have had it said over and over again, is government. Until we begin to move ourselves away from that mentality, we also will not deal. I mean, for instance, let me take a private. If you go to banks are majorly private. The link between bank and government is the regulatory framework,
right?
Which is under the auspices of the central bank and other regulatory institutions in the country. You never see banks as government property. So, and when there is an issue to be dealt with, you sue the bank. If, for instance, there is a breach of contract, perhaps you first of all report to CBN, maybe their consumer complaints unit will deal with it. And if they are not dealing with it, we sue. The same thing with the discos. If they are not dealing with your complaint and you think that there has been a breach and you have exhausted the resolution mechanism platforms, you sue. The problem we have in this country, yes, admittedly, the God of justice is slow-footed. It's slow but sure-footed. It could take a bit of time. I know that even for this tariff, 1 or 2 people have gone to court to say that it's discriminatory, and they have listed out the issues that they have with it, and they are asking for certain reliefs. One of which is that government should terminate the new tariff. It's not within my purview to go legal about this. I'm not going to discuss it. I'm even not allowed to discuss it because any matter that is in court is called sub judice. So you are stopped from even discussing it, although it's even a public issue, which is a different thing entirely. But the point I'm trying to make is that we as consumers, we must also be ready to take the service provider, put the service provider to task, and say, look, this is what you said you will do, and you have not done it, and you have a responsibility to do it.
I hope someone actually listened to that and then is ready to go grab your distribution company and tell them you're breaching the contract that we have. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, Olabode Fadipe will definitely delve right into it when we return from this quick break. Let's go on a quick break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation on Nigeria's electricity sector. See you after that. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is the conversation reaching you from KAFTAN television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join in the conversation as my guest. The show today is Olabode Fadipe, who is an energy expert, and we've been talking about Nigeria's electricity sector, looking at from the challenges, the rot, and then preferring solutions. Okay, before we went on that break, I think you wanted to say something before. Just land on your thoughts.
Yes, what was I trying to talk about now?
When I talked about consumers, if you feel aggrieved, if you feel that the contract has been breached, go and fight against it immediately.
Yes, I think that is the least that the customers can do for themselves, to make sure that they put the discos to task. And by so doing, we expect that there will be some level of efficiency that will be achieved. Otherwise, they may just relax and there will be grumbling in our bedrooms and things like that. NEC must be assisted to get to that point. Provide them with evidence. It was as a result of customers' complaints that NEC moved against AEDC when they committed that infraction. Do customers know that? Is it Section 70 or Section 75 of the Electricity Act? Do they know that it provides that where they are not satisfied with the service of the service provider, a group of electricity consumer advocates can come together and write a petition to NEC to say, investigate this disco. We are not satisfied with their performance. Are they aware? I tell you, most people are not aware that that provision is in the Electricity Act. They're not aware. You see, we have allowed our Africanness or our communal life to influence us at times to our own detriment and our own peril.
But then let me ask, as a consumer now, you just hear that question, even the people in NEC or presiding over NEC, are they not also a customer? Are they not also electricity consumer? Are they not also being underserved? So don't they also have complaints? So are you waiting, just like someone came to ask that, is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu not seeing the problem that Nigerians are facing? Are the politicians not seeing that we're not using the same market? So are we all not using or having the same issues?
You know, the thing with law, there's this thing about one of the fundamental principles of law is fairness. And one of the attributes of fairness is that you are not allowed to be a judge in your own matter.
Ah, okay.
So NEC commissioners cannot report their own matter to themselves and take a decision. It is deemed to be impossible for them to be fair about it. That's why a judge in the court cannot sit down over its own,
be a judge and a jury
over the matter that affects him. Imagine, for instance, that the presiding judge is a female and the lawyer arguing the case is her husband. The law does not allow him to appear before her. No, I mean, the law will presume that there will be bias. So the matter will be assigned to a different judge entirely. In the same way, NEC, they see, but they expect others to bring the complaint, maybe by way of what you call obiter in law. It's not part of the main judgment. They can then, maybe in the course of reviewing the matter, they can privately or personally express the view that this issue, I have also personally experienced it. I mean, it's not going to be part of the official conversation. I do agree with you that we all go to the same market, the same electricity market. We all suffer the same thing. We saw it when it was about to rain. For instance, what happened yesterday, very heavy storm. I don't know whether you saw a video in the social media about Ogun State.
Ogun State.
Otta.
I saw it this morning.
Otta, precisely, where a lot of poles fell down. In fact, one fell on a school bus, and we were wondering what kind of strong school bus is it, because the thing didn't show that a pole fell on it.
Right.
And it speaks to the disgrace in the power sector. That at the slightest wind, I mean, imagine that we had a more serious
boisterous wind.
Yes, that happened in advanced tornadoes,
hurricanes and
all of those things. It means for about 1 year we won't have electricity. So one would have, and this is where we must commend a disco like Yola. Do you know what Yola has done? Yola saw that the poles that were planted in its network are not poles that can withstand the speed of the wind and the intensity of the wind. They went around the country to look for poles, and they couldn't get poles that could withstand that climatic condition. So they decided to start their own pole manufacturing company. That's a thing of wisdom. Look at those poles that fell down. Of course, maybe the kind of rods in the concrete, maybe tiny rods that they use to reinforce it. Yet that is not reinforcement, it is just fulfilling unrighteousness, because at the slightest. So ordinarily you will expect that no matter the wind, if they had used maybe what you call tubular poles, iron poles, plant them very well, reinforce them, that no matter the wind, at worst it can only shake. But the lines are well strong with the right size of conductor, maybe 150 mm conductor, the right size of cross arms. The cross arm is that wood that goes across and carries the 3 lines for HT line, because I'm sure what we saw in Songwater were HT lines.
Okay.
And then the right size of insulators, not using 11 kV insulator for 33 kV lines, or using 33 kV, I mean vice versa, using the right size of materials and all of those. And then with the heavy wind, you still see that there's electricity.
So now that explains the fact that there is rain. In fact, one small wind, safe, or there is rain, or there is storm, and the electricity must go off, because there's this shock that you see on people's faces when the rain is coming, but we still have electricity. And you just be asking, but how now? What happened?
It's a function of two facts.
Okay.
One, the system ought to be built in such a way that when it sees a type of danger that can destroy it and cause human damage to human beings, it should cut off.
Okay.
The system is normally built with that kind of safety parameter at the back of the mind of the builders. Yes. Okay. But it's also, the flip side of it, which appears to be more prevalent in our environment, is that the system is not built to be that rugged, that at the slightest wind, there's what is called earth fault in the electricity industry. When there is an interference of a foreigner. So if, for instance, within the city center, you have maybe 11 kV lines or 33 kV lines running through the city center, and because of beautification, trees have grown to be, and I'm sure you have seen this quite a number of times. Trees have grown and they now interfere with the lines, or they interfere or have the potential to interfere. In other words, they have grown so close that when you have strong winds, it pushes them, and the moment there is a connection between one phase and the other, the system is allowed to cut off. Okay. By way of, it can be what you call transient fault. In other words, a short fault. So if it rests on it and goes off immediately, that's a transient fault. Okay. But if it rests on it permanently, maybe the tree fell down, in order to save human life and the equipment, because once that interference is allowed to remain there for some time, and there is no cutting off of the electricity, it can result into explosion in the control room. Okay. So in order to avoid that explosion that will destroy the equipment and maybe kill human beings there, the system is allowed to cut off immediately. Oh, okay. But again, part of the problem that we have is that it's not even as robust to even accommodate such pressure as we saw in Songo. Because if those poles were strong, and those lines have been properly strong, and they are not going to interfere with themselves, why would it trip? Why would it trip? I asked myself same question when I saw it. All right, let's move straight to other matters. I saw a particular, because you talked about the Electricity Act, and then how we also, I remember also asking you that same question before, or when this current administration kick-started, they talked about privatization, and they talked about how you have most states will now, decentralization, how most states will now have their own electricity. You have most private companies will now have their own. That's why you now have Transcore Power and all. So now I saw a particular headline or a particular story here that talks about, the headline there says, why Transcore Power sells electricity outside Nigeria. And it has been causing quite a number of responses, both on and off social media. But now I'll take a quote from the person. It says, due to some of the limitations you have on the grid, you have a scenario whereby you have distribution companies from time to time unable to take that load, meaning that they are unable to take all the power that we generate, and you cannot store electricity. I hear you always say, make that statement most times. Yeah. But then you also stated that we had to look for a market outside the country. So what you find us exporting is typically part of generated power that otherwise was not put on the grid. It is a structural issue within the sector, and we do not want a scenario where, because of power demand, we cannot maximize the available capacity that we have within the plant. Is this excuse, is it sustainable or substantial enough for you as an electricity or for a businessman? You cannot fault it. Really? If the market if the local market is not absorbing and I have more to sell, I should go to the next village.
You're not talking about village now.
No, by way of analogy.
Okay.
Take location A, this power plant, Transcorp is there, and Transcorp expects that the local disco there will take power from it. And the local disco says, I know you have 100 megawatts, but I cannot take more than, or you have the capacity to do 100 megawatts, but I cannot take more than 20 megawatts. That's the much I can take. You have left the generator with the problem of how do I now maximize the benefit of my capacity? What they are saying in effect is maximization of the benefit of their capacity. So from the businessman's perspective, is a justified one. From the perspective of patriotism, we need to be a little bit more careful in doing the analysis. And you see that he raised, I've read the story, so I wanted to jump in, but it will be unfair to you. He talked about discos not being able to take load. He said it's a structural issue. Right. That's quite deep. At the beginning of this conversation, I was telling you about the fact that when you begin to step down from transmission, discos are expected to build Type 3 kV injection substations, 11 kV injection substations, before they now bring down for domestic usage. This is part of the issue. If transmission can take 10,000, say transmission can take 10,000 megawatts, and they have reinforced their structure, or they can take 12,000 megawatts, they have built their structure to take that. Which is the advantage we have with generation? Generation is reinforcing constantly. And we have transmission saying we can do 8,500 megawatts. But we have not seen a corresponding investment at the distribution level. For instance, in distribution, there is what is called day-ahead nomination, DAN. The discos ask for what they can take. And what they can take is usually a function of two fundamentals. One, the ability to collect the money. And then the sufficiency of their equipment and lines to take the power. Okay. So I'm expecting about 50 megawatts. Transmission says for Katampe area, I'm going to give you 50 megawatts. Or Ariaria market in the east, or Balogun market in Lagos, or Argungu market in Sokoto. I can give you 20 megawatts. Transmission. They have that capacity. But the discourse says, wait a minute. If I take the 20 megawatts, where is the line to transport it to my station? Do I have the transformer to take it? Is my transformer 15 MVA or 7.5 MVA or 30 MVA or 45 MVA to take it at once? Okay, assuming I even have the capacity to take, what about the customer? By the time I give out the power, can they pay? Because affordability is another conversation entirely. Because the person that gave me the power will expect that I will pay for it. You get what I'm saying? So if I cannot pay for it, why do I need to take it? And if I'm not taking it, and electricity cannot be stored, don't forget that transmission will maintain their lines. Generators will maintain their machines. Right. If they are not getting money from the market, will they go and take loan to do all of those things? So that's why I said, as a businessman, it was a wise decision to go to the market, whether local or international, that can buy.
Interesting. Oh, really?
They are just looking for markets, and luckily enough, they will be getting in dollars, because I'm not sure they are paid in naira. And given the fact that naira has been struggling, except of late, it's also good business for them, because by the time they look at their balance sheet, they'll be smiling.
So it doesn't matter if the country where I'm residing is having a death or drought in electricity,
now this is where
go and serve.
Now this is where the patriotic part of the business comes in. And the question some people have been asking is, okay, you say that because these schools have structural problem, they cannot take and they cannot serve. Have you explored the possibility of selling directly to companies that are willing to take? Right. So this is where the eligible customer policy comes in, which NEC has also settled. And then the willing buyer, willing seller. Or the bilateral contract agreement, that Gencos can go directly to a customer. Say, for instance, KAFTAN Television says, I'm going directly to a Genco to supply me. Can they do it? Why? Because ordinarily you will say that, I mean, from the patriotic perspective, even if you sell at 250 today, productive agencies or agencies involved in production will still gain more. How?
Right.
Because to do a unit of electricity that you are buying 225, if you have to do it by private generation, you will buy diesel of over 1,000, and the cost of the unit of electricity will be over 500 naira.
So you're saying that at least we are being or they are being underpriced? Is that what you're saying? Or we are paying less, just like you always hear the minister say that we're not paying, the country that pays not so much.
The point
that's the reason why we turn on our TV light.
Apologize. So let's take it that he swallowed. I mean, he has withdrawn that statement. Right. Let's look for a simpler analysis. For if you generate electricity privately, let's say you are a company and you generate electricity privately using diesel that you buy at 1,000 plus. To sell a unit of that electricity, you would probably sell it for about 600 naira.
Okay.
But if you buy the same unit of electricity from the grid, you will pay less than 250 naira.
Ah.
So what it means is that the grid is still a lot cheaper because there is economy of scale, volume. So what you use in producing 1 unit of electricity may not be marginally different from what you use in producing 10 units of electricity. So you have that advantage of volume.
Okay.
And that's why the companies should prefer public source than their own privately generated. So if they had gone, if Transcorp Power had gone to, I mean, because take for instance, the gas companies, they supply gas to private companies in the organized private sector, particularly in Lagos area, Agbara and all of those axes. And they have never been delinquent in supplying the gas. Why? Because those companies pay for the gas, which is a contrast that you have in the Nigeria electricity supply industry, where there is payment delinquency.
Oh, wow. I think that's well explained. All right, our time is fast, but if you can help us in just 3 minutes, if you can help us. 2 questions, and I'd like you to take them together. The headline we saw this morning states that electricity market NEC transfers regulatory oversight to Enugu government. That's one on the side. And then secondly, I saw another headline. I'm trying to find out where I'm sure I'm going to see it before we leave. Talks about, that's on the Punch, says federal government to unbundle 11 discos, orders sale of 4. What are your thoughts in this regards?
Now, for Enugu State, we must commend them, whether they did it rightly or wrongly. The first thing for me is when there is a law, test the law.
Okay.
I mean, in honor of former President Muhammadu Buhari, he signed the amendment of the Constitution that allowed states to, even though there's a different conversation about that, but he signed the amendment of the Constitution to allow states to participate in the upstream and downstream portions of the power sector, generation, transmission, and distribution.
All right.
And further to that, almost 11 days or shortly after it was inaugurated, the current president signed the new Electricity Act. As a matter of fact, there has been an amendment, but let's give credit to whom credit is due. He signed it almost immediately, suggesting by that action that he wants a power sector that is vibrant, that can deliver on its mandate, and then Nigerians can heave a sigh of relief. I have seen a video in the social media where the president is is quoted to have said when he was still bidding for the office that if I cannot give you electricity, don't vote for me. When that time comes, we'll deal with that one. But currently, let's deal with what is on ground. So he signed that one, and we must commend him for that. So for me, Enugu has blazed the trail, as it is said. They have taken the lead in that regard by not just enacting their own electricity law to regulate their own electricity market, by not just enacting a law to regulate their own electricity market, they have even gone ahead to appoint their commissioners, their own Enugu State Electricity Commission. They have set up that commission, they have appointed their commissioners, and they have even gone further to interface with NEC to say, cede to us our own market, which is what NEC has just done. I think both sides must be commended, and it's a learning curve for both sides. NEC is watching them very closely, monitoring what is going on there, because as they go along, they will see areas of corrections, they will see areas that require improvement, and we can drive the market to that point where we can say, yes, we are getting to where we want. I think it's a fantastic move, and we must commend them for it. We cannot say immediately that these are the problems that are going to, come out of it. But let's even try, and they have tried, and we must commend them for it. Now, in terms of the selling of 4 discos, I think I've seen IBEDC being mentioned. I've seen Benin Electricity Distribution Company being mentioned. I don't know the other two, but it's in the public space that those 2 discos, incidentally in the south, will go. Why? Their managers are not designed to be power sector managers. Banks are not designed to run utilities. I know that they are in the service industry, but they are not designed to run utilities.
Is that the challenge here?
It's a challenge, and I'll tell you why it's a challenge. I was in an environment of conversation about the power sector, and a gentleman said, and somebody said, oh, the transformer is overloaded. And in response, somebody said, if the transformer is overloaded, then it means that there is so much money on the transformer. Go and bring me the money. Of course. Of course, those who understood the lacuna in that conversation could not laugh, but it was a very, very funny conversation to those who understand the conversation at that point in time. The banker is always looking for money. If air can be turned into money, the banker will turn it into money and keep. But it doesn't follow that linear path in the power sector. As a matter of fact, there is a conversation between which comes first, the egg or the chicken, service or money or service. That cyclical conversation is in the power sector, and it's an unending conversation. 1, 2, engineers and commercial people in the power sector, they will never see eye to eye. They are always, they are strange. Forgive the use of this expression. They are strange bedfellows. It's like the critic and the artist. They don't agree. Why? The commercial man looks at the continuity of the business. If I don't make money from this asset, how does it continue? The engineer is only concerned about he wants to obey God. Let there be light. And there is light. Now, whether money comes out of it or not, at times it doesn't bother. He just wants to put on his overall, carry his spanner, wear his safety boots, put on his safety hat, and let there be light. But it doesn't work that way. There must be a goal congruence.
All right.
There has to be a goal Congress. And this is where the tariff issue comes in.
Oh, what a fine way to end this conversation. Thank you so much. I remember there's a particular question that they've been asking on social media. I don't even know if there's time, but if you can help us in 1 minute, because I remember when you talked about how you distribute the electricity from the transmission down to the home. So now, tell us, is that actually the reason why, if they have so much and then they send in that's so much that they have, is that the reason why we have the light is too much? Let me use the Nigerian balance. High current, and my TV just blew up. Everything is blowing up.
So when you have that kind of situation, there's a breakdown of some equipment, particularly the safety equipment.
Okay.
That's, I mean, putting it in a very simple way. If you have a voltage that damages, that destroys equipment, it means that the regulatory framework along the line, there is a breakdown in the regulatory framework.
So it is not the load that was sent in?
The load is supposed to be regulated.
Okay.
From stage to stage, stage to stage. So when your safety track is non-existent, for instance, when you build a house, there's what is called lightning arrestor.
Yeah, right.
If that lightning arrestor is not there and there's a thunderstorm, it can go into the transformer. You see, if you get to a typical substation, there's what is called fuse. There's what is called J&P fuse. That J&P is the name of the person that designed it. So that fuse has a rating.
Okay.
When there's a fault on the line, rather than allow the fault to come to the transformer, that fuse acts as a gatesman. It will cut off.
Okay.
Once there is no continuity in that circuit, the transformer is protected. So it's a protection mechanism. So when the protection breaks down, that's when it goes into your equipment in the house. And that's when you lose television, you lose this, you lose that. Even in your homes, your wall switch, your wall socket has a fuse that looks like a capsule in it. If you open it, inside that capsule, there is a tiny wire that is supposed to cut off if the voltage that is coming into it is more than what it is designed to take. It's a protection mechanism.
Always a fine conversation we always have with you, Olabode Fadipe, and there's never always time to have this conversation. But thank you so much for always obliging to our invitation. Thank you so much for coming. All right, viewers, I'm sure you must have been rightly educated, entertained, and informed. It's been a wonderful time here on The Conversation. I have learned a lot. I always learn a lot when it comes to especially energy matters. And I'm sure you must have also. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll see you again next time. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours. God bless Nigeria. And please, before I leave, don't steal our electricity. God bless you and yours, and God bless Nigeria.